Hello there, it's Fiona from Weekly Sewing Bee. Okay, so Halloween is coming and nobody's asked, what am I to wear? Okay, well, I on the night am working as a waitress for a charity dinner. So I can't wear a costume, I've got to wear black. So what I'm going to wear is a very small witch's hat, and I'm going to use lace to imitate bird netting. Now bird netting is the same as lace, and then this is my head. But it's got bigger holes and it's more rigid because we're going to sort of fan it out. And I suppose in a way, if we were making a slightly bigger hat, then it would be a veil. Yeah, but we're not going for that. All we're going for is a little witch's hat in felt. I'm going to hand sew the lace on, and I'm going to attach it to my head with just a normal slidey grip. So very easy to do, but very dramatic effect. So I've got my piece of felt here, and we really don't need much. The sizing, as always, is sort of dictated by the size of the cloth, you know, unless you've got enough, then there's a lot to be said for just doing it for the size of the cloth. So I don't need that bigger than that, but I do need it enough to be clear, and the bigger it is, the easier it is to sew. So what I've done is I've roughly cut a circle and I've cut a point. What I'm going to do first of all is I have my sewing machine set up, and I am going to be sewing the lace on by hand, so you could quite easily actually do it all by hand. I don't know if lazy is the right word, but probably not. I'm going to use the sewing machine. So all I've done is I've joined my cone up to the end. Yeah, it's easier for me to trim it after I've sewn it, just so that I can get really close. I'm just going to take a minute and get rid of my excess threads because they do drive me a bit nutty. So because we've got this nice ridged seam as well, it makes it quite strong, just it strengthens it. Now if you prefer, you could use glue, but you know, that's fine. So what we now need to do is we now need to attach the cone to the base. I'm not going to put a hole in it because it's not going to go anywhere, although if you had hair that was long enough for bunches, then that would be great as well. I've also got my lace, so what I'm going to do is I am going to sew this on, and the easiest way to do it is by hand. It's going to be far too fiddly. I'm going to start at the back and I'm going to ease it out every step of the way. Now if at the end of it I've got a wonky hat, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just trim it, because it is only a rough circle. I could have raided the kitchen to find a plate or anything that would be the right size. Okay, so a little bit of hand sewing. When I've done this little bit of hand sewing, I'm then going to hand sew the lace on to the bottom of this brim. So lots to consider. You might find it easier if you put just a little bit of stuffing in there, just to hold it upright, but you know, who knows, it's a work in progress. Okay, I'm going to pause the camera and come back when I've got something to show. Hi, so welcome back. Okay, it does look a bit like a traffic cone, but that's fine. I did put some stuffing in there just to hold it rigid whilst I sewed it. Now what I have here is two strips, probably 30 inches of lace, and they're laid on top of each other. Now, because the birdcage netting is kind of like a veil that's rolled up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tack in some stitches to represent the roll. So they don't need to be neat, they don't need to be accurate. In fact, we actually need to portray this as quite rough and ready, because it's always nowadays the birdcage lace is always a symbol of shabby chic sort of thing. So, and what I don't want to do is pull this tight, so let me just pull that through. There we go. But the next layer, the next line of stitches, I am going to be pulling it tight, because I'm going to gather, and I'm going to be sewing 3/4 of the way around the front, so, which is all good. So, and in fact, what I could have done is just very tightly done a couple of stitches at the end, so that it does look as if it's floppy, but that's all good. Okay, so I've now got my thread at the other end of the lace. The rim is slightly larger at the front, so, and then I've got the spike at the back, and I'm going to keep the spike at the back because I want it to stay rigid. Do you know, it's one of those things, it's like a bad habit, or it's just a habit, I don't suppose it's bad. I find it a lot easier to sew on my lap, so all I'm doing now is rethreading the needle. In fact, let's give myself some more thread. So, all nearly finished in my own little way. I did think about threading up 2 needles before I started, but I only threaded 1. So now I have my lace, my hat, my needle. I'm going to do a couple of starter stitches. Now I've got my lace at a funky angle at the minute, because in a way I want to just bring in that roll for the front, and I'll be doing that at the other end as well. So that's secured. I'm now going to turn it upside down and just stitch in and gather the lace at the bottom of the hat. So a stitch, pick up some lace and bring it over. A stitch through, and then a good sort of 2-inch pinch, and then bring it through, another good 2-inch, and then I'm going to keep going round. So I know, I hope it's not boring. And as we know, we all have strengths and weaknesses. I'm not 100% sure that hand sewing is one of my strengths. Not at all. It's practice, isn't it? I should practice. I should go away and practice. So I've also picked up the curb from the other end, so that I've got that look of a veil. I'm going to flatten that down, and I'm just going to finish that off with a quick knot. Remove the pin. Okay, so that's what I'm left with. What I need now is my hair tie. And I know, you'd think I'd put bunches in or something just to make life easier for myself. So all I need now to do is open that slide grip and I can put that on my hair. So I'm all ready for wearing black and with just a little bit of colour. Okay, thank you so much for watching. My name's Fiona from Weekly Sewing Bee.